Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here. Myrna, thank you for that beautiful introduction, as I know Myrna always does. I am Katie, and first and foremost, I set my timer because I do have a tendency to talk for a long time, as Myrna knows. So we're going to get right into it because I value your time as well. I want to start by saying that I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. First and foremost, I love being there in person. But secondly, I wanted to congratulate everybody and welcome to the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas family. So when I'm in person, I usually ask where the new grads are. If you could raise your hand, I always say that I'm thankful that you're here because I'm going to need someone to take care of me in about 30 to 40 years. But welcome to everybody. So, like Myrna said, I'm Katie Carroll, and I am a full-time staff nurse in the pediatric same-day surgery unit, which is the seventh floor of the Children's Hospital. So if you ever want to see a beautiful sunset, come over and visit us on the seventh floor. So let's get right into it today. What are we talking about? Stress, burnout, overwhelm, and self-care. Self-care is my jam. But I wanted to start by saying that when I graduated nursing school 23 years ago, self-care was nowhere on my radar. I didn't learn about it in nursing school. I definitely didn't hear about it during nursing orientation. I didn't hear about it from my preceptor. I didn't really fully understand the importance of it or really what it was until I went through my deepest burnout in my nursing career, which happened about 8 years ago while I was working in the pediatric emergency room. Now, I don't want to scare anybody that's going into the emergency room. It was one of the best experiences I have had as a nurse, and I'm so happy I had that time. But it was the culmination of me not taking care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually that led me to that deep burnout and depression of my life. So today we're going to jump right in, and I wish I was so there in person because I love doing this analogy in person, but I want us to think about a swimming pool. And I want us to think about when we decided to go to nursing school, during nursing school, studying for the boards, taking the exam, going for the interview, getting the job, sitting in nursing orientation, right? Right where you are today. And so, for those of you who are just starting out in your career, this analogy to me is what I think about when I graduated 23 years ago. For those of you who have been in it for a while, I think you can still think back to that time when you were a new nurse. So, I want you to picture a swimming pool, and I want you to picture the low end where you could maybe start to walk in a little bit, feel the water temperature, see if you want to go farther in. I feel like nursing school is we didn't even look at the shallow end. We went all the way around to the deep end and we dove headfirst into the deep end of the swimming pool. And what happens is you come up for air and you feel like you're floundering a little bit, right? But thank goodness you have your preceptor there for however many weeks or months you're on orientation. And I feel like our preceptor is our life preserver, right? He or she is holding us up in the deep end of nursing, right? And they are there, they have you. And so while you're with your preceptor, you feel like you're being kept afloat. Even though responsibility is still on you as well, you feel like you have that life preserver with you. So then what happens when you come into work and they say, congratulations, you're off orientation and today is your first day, right? We think it's by ourselves as a new nurse all alone. I want to say first and foremost, you're never alone. You may feel alone, but there is always someone there to help. It truly takes a village. After 23 years of doing this, I never did anything alone. I may have felt alone or new or scared to speak up for myself. But now this is why I do what I do. It's my passion that we start speaking about the fact that there are people around us all the time to help us. So you find yourself in the deep end of the pool, the preceptor pulls away, and you're kind of there in the deep end, and now you've been a nurse for maybe 6 months, a year, and now your head nurse comes to you and says, guess what? I'm going to put you in charge. And you go under a little bit and you come back up and you think, I'm going to be in charge. I've only been here for like a year, right? And you're wondering how you're going to do it all. But as nurses, we just continue to do all of the things because it's what we're so good at, right? So then you take charge duty, and now it's maybe a year or two later, and your head nurse comes to you and says, I want you to join a committee, right? And it's another thing on your plate. So during my talk today, I always talk about the plate of life. And I want you to keep that in mind as you're in the deep end of the swimming pool, holding your plate of life. And for all of us, we're all given this one beautiful life, but our plates look very different. There are different things on people's plates. Some people have kids, some don't. Some people, this is their second job. Maybe you're here per diem. Some people are going back to school. Some people are single. Some people are married. Whatever you have on your plate, but we all have something on our plate. The thing is, as nurses, because we are hardworking, smart, successful, goal-oriented people, we continue to put stuff on our plate. The problem is that nowhere along the way were we taught to hold up, look at our plate, and see what's going on. We keep putting stuff on our plate because as nurses, when you're at work during your shift, stuff is always being put on your plate. Am I right? Right? You maybe took the first admission and now it's your turn again because there's so many admissions. You're up for another admission while you're getting ready to discharge someone, while you need to do stat labs on someone, right? We're always taking it on as nurses in a time frame that we're given from the time that we punch in till we punch out. So you picture yourself in the deep end. You've been a nurse for a couple years. Now maybe in your personal life, now maybe you're getting married. Maybe you're buying a house. Maybe you're moving to a new location, taking on a new job, and you feel like the plate is getting heavier and heavier in the water. Now, one of the funny things that I talk about when I'm talking about this analogy, because I have spoken to many new grad nurses, nurses in their 20s, and also nurses in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And the thing is that nursing is changing. I think we're in a very pivotal time in healthcare and in nursing, and I'm sure you can agree, especially since COVID, where things are shifting in the nursing world. Nursing back in the day, and I even want to say back in the day when I graduated 23 years ago, my expectation, what I thought was meant to be, was that I would be at the bedside for the next 45 years, right? Because that's what people did. I had a coworker retire. She was 45 years at the bedside. She retired about maybe 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. 45 years at the bedside. I just want you to think about that for a little bit. Okay, I've been 23 years at the bedside, so my husband will jokingly say, you just have 22 more years at the bedside. And not that that won't happen, but I think that things are changing and we have different opportunities as nurses. The thing is that we're looking at this pool now and we're seeing nurses that have been in the pool a year or less, and they're jumping out of the pool. They are jumping out of the pool and they're hightailing it. They're leaving nursing altogether, which is sad. I feel like that's a very heartbreaking thought to have. And so people may be wondering, I've been in this pool for 30 years. How is she or he getting out of it after a year or two and just leaving? The problem is the foundation of nursing, of what it's been built on, the support that we've had in the past, that is all on shaky ground. So these nurses that are jumping in and getting out a year later and maybe leaving the profession altogether, it's not them. It is the culture, the structure of nursing and what it has become, that they don't feel supported. And they feel like they can't continue to live in an environment like that. Literally, they may feel like they're drowning which has to be the worst feeling in the world, and they are just getting out. So you may say, okay, Katie, I have felt like that before in my life, but what do I do about it? And this is where I get into the action steps that you can take. This is my most favorite part of the talk. So if you take anything home with you today, I want you to take this home with you, the ABCs of navigating burnout. I want to just add before that is that there is a difference between stress and burnout. The thing is, we like to lump everything together into one big bowl and we just say, I'm stressed, burnt out, overwhelmed, anxious, depressed. We just throw it all in there. And when people ask us how we're doing, we actually use the F word. Have you guys ever used the F word when someone says, how are you doing? How is work? Things must be stressful after COVID. How are things? How are you? Anybody find themselves saying, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine, right? What does that indicate? That indicates that we're shoving down all the feelings and emotions that we feel, see, hear, do as nurses in our shift. And we're just telling the world, I'm fine. What I have found in my own personal life, going through my deepest burnout, and in speaking with nurses and speaking at orientation now in my 3rd year of speaking, thanks to Myrna, is that we're not fine. But maybe we don't know how to tell someone, I'm actually not fine. Things are a mess. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. Now more than ever, we know that mental health has become in the forefront of people's minds. People are talking about mental health. It's everywhere. You can Google it. But I still think that we are lacking the tools of how to use the tools so that we can help ourselves mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, right? We are 3-dimensional beings. We are not just a body that walks into work and punches in and punches out. We have a mind and a spirit that comes in and experiences everything we're experiencing as nurses. The problem is that as nurses, because of what we see, hear, do, smell, we learn very early on to put on this shield, this protective shield, okay? The thing is, the shield is great because there are times where we cannot be the one to break down at work. We are seeing death, we are seeing life, we're seeing birth, we're seeing sadness, we're seeing intense acute accidents, traumas, we're seeing diagnoses, and we can't be the one to fall apart. So we learn how to put on this protective shield. We have to protect ourselves. The problem, we don't know when to take the shield off. And so it kind of becomes part of us. And the problem is when you're blocking out the bad, the trauma, you're blocking everything else out too. Right? And so maybe we punch out and we go home to our families, friends, communities, and we still have on this shield and we're just going through the motions. And we find on the inside that our souls are trying to speak to us. I'm sad. I'm not happy. I'm stressed. I can't do this anymore. How can I wake up again tomorrow and do this? But the alarm goes off. We wake up. Shield is on. Punch into work, and we do it all again. So today, when I talk about the ABCs of navigating burnout, these are real actionable steps that you can take starting today if you're feeling like this. And if you're not feeling like this, great. I want you to just take this and put it in your back pocket so that you can use it if that day comes along that you need it. So the ABCs of navigating burnout, it's not airway, breathing, circulation, but we all know airway is always the number one answer. So the A in navigating burnout is assess. We are great at assessing our patients. It's what we do best, right? You walk into a room, you see your patient, you immediately assess. Are they awake? Are they sleeping? How's their coloring? Are they sitting up? Are they eating? Are they trying to get out of bed? Are they not in the bed? Are they in the chair? How did they get in there, right? We are assessing our family members and friends all the time. Anybody else, like, have you been to a Christmas party yet and you see someone you haven't seen in a while and you immediately assess, how are they doing? They look thinner. They look heavier. They're with a new person. They're not here. Where are they? Right? We are constantly assessing our environments, the people in our environments. You know who we never assess? Ourselves. Why? We don't have the time, right? I'm pretty sure that every nurse has used that expression in many, many instances in their lives, right? We don't have the time. We work 12-hour shifts, 8, 10, 12-hour, 16-hour shifts, and we still feel like we don't have the time. We're living in a very fast paced world, right? We're getting notifications constantly on our phone. Our Apple Watch is telling us that someone's calling. We're in the middle of starting an IV and you see something on your Apple Watch. Someone's trying to call you. Someone's trying to email you or text you. That's why we feel like we don't have the time. But I want to let you in on a little secret today. You do have the time. You're just not making it. That was the hard realization for me. When I felt like I didn't have the time, I was looking outward for everybody else to fix my problems. I wasn't happy working in the peds emergency room. I was feeling extreme anxiety coming into work every day. And I was going home every night after work and having a glass of wine. Make that 2 glasses. The problem is, even on the days I didn't work, I found myself opening the wine bottle and pouring a glass of wine every night, or 2 or 3 glasses. The problem, you don't feel great the next morning. Another problem, I'm continuing to numb out the way I feel. The reason why we don't want to assess ourselves is because many times we really don't want to see what's in there. I worked with a life coach who said that when we assess ourselves, when we look inward, his analogy of it was that it's deep and dark and wide. There's a lot in there, right? We all have a lot of life experiences, especially if you've been a nurse for a long period of time. There's a lot locked away there. So, how can we assess ourselves and our lives? 3 questions you can write down and you can journal on them later when you get a chance. The first question is, what is going good in my life? Right? Why not focus on the good? We're so focused on the negative, which is another thing that nurses do great. We're always looking for the problem, right? We take a set of vital signs and we look, what is the problem? How's the blood pressure? How's the heart rate? Do they have a temperature? I work in peds same day. The child comes in for surgery. We take a temperature right away because if his kid has a fever, surgery is canceled, right? The thing is that we rarely focus on the positive in life. So I want you to write down the question, what is working well? And what is working well in your life? Look, you're in orientation. You got a new job. That's exciting, right? Maybe daycare is working out for your family. Maybe you just found a partner, right? Maybe you bought a new house, whatever. You write down what's working well. Then you ask yourself, what's not working so well? Right? Maybe you are on 2 committees and you're at a point in your life where you can no longer be present at both committees. So you're thinking, I'm going to have to talk to my manager and only do 1 committee, right? And then the third question you would ask yourself is, what can I do to make things better tomorrow? Right? Because when I was going through my deepest burnout, I was never looking at myself. How could I help myself fix the problem? I was looking at everybody else to fix what was wrong. The thing is, we know what's wrong. We know how to fix it. We're just not allowing ourselves the time and energy to focus on ourselves. And what does that look like? Maybe it looks like your calendar. Anybody else like loving their calendar or planner? I just got my 2023 planner. I still do it all written down, I think because I'm a child of the 80s, but I know everybody has it in their phone. Fine, put it in your phone. On your day off, instead of loading yourself up from A to Z for the entire day, which is what I used to do, and keeping myself busy, you allocate some downtime, some white space on your calendar, they call it, right? So maybe you have an hour free, maybe you have a half hour free. What are you going to do during that time? Maybe you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to sit down and ask myself those 3 questions, because I feel like the only downtime we allow ourselves, or time that we're by ourselves, is in the shower these days, right? Every other minute of the day, we are being occupied by patients, their families, life, our cell phone, responsibilities. The problem is that eventually it catches up to you in the form of severe depression, anxiety, maybe a diagnosis, broken relationships, right? So I want us to catch it before it's too bad. They say in the research that stress that is not tackled and looked at and taken care of can lead to burnout, right? So it's like these are the preventative measures that you can take to help yourself on this journey. So that's the A, assess. B, this is my favorite. I wish I was there with you guys. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Oh my gosh. I wish I learned about this many moons ago. I feel like I've only really learned about boundaries over the past couple of years because it was a non negotiable anymore. I was at my wit's end with my burnout and I needed to help myself. So, when you think about your boundaries, I want us to go back to the pool analogy. And if you have a pool, you have to have a fence around your pool to protect people from getting in, right? You don't want your neighbor's 3-year-old child to get into your pool. So, the fence is there to protect. I want us to think about our boundaries in life as our fence around us, our protection. And this is a trick that you can take with you. And I know I'm running out of time. So the B for boundaries, a trick you can take, is called the power of the pause. And the power of the pause looks like this. Your head nurse comes up to you at the 11th hour and says, Susie, 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 can you please come in and work tomorrow? We already had 2 sick calls. Someone's out on FMLA and we really need you. It's going to be crazy busy. And it was your day off and you were really hoping to do some Christmas shopping. Maybe you had a dental appointment that you haven't been to in 3 years because of COVID. And you find yourself saying yes, yes, yes all the time. The power of the pause looks like this. Susie, 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 can you please come in and work tomorrow? You smile under your mask. You take a deep breath and you say, thank you so much for asking me, but I'm going to have to look at my calendar and get back to you. That's because you took the power back, right? It's called the power of the pause because you took the power back. When someone approaches you, I need you, I need money, I need your time. Can you babysit? Can you drive me to the airport? Can you switch a shift for me? When they come to you like that, they've taken your power, right? They've come right in, there's no boundary, right? They've come right into your pool. When you have that boundary up and you're prepared, it looks like, can I get back to you? And you take some of the power back. And then you look at your schedule. And if it's not a heck yes, it's a heck no. And saying no, even though I know it can be uncomfortable for many people, including myself, and I've gotten better at it, is saying no can look like this. Thank you so much for asking me, but unfortunately, that's not going to work for me. That's it. That's a complete sentence. We find that we have to make up all of these stories about, I'm sorry I can't work because my dad's cousin is flying in for the holidays and I have to pick him up at JFK. So I have to leave like 7 hours early because of the traffic and I won't be able. No, enough with the stories. It looks like this. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to do that, but that's not going to work for me right now. Thank you. Okay? The power of the pause. We have to learn how to set boundaries. I love one of the best expressions I've ever heard about boundaries is that the people that get upset with you setting your boundaries are the same people that got the most out of you when you didn't have the boundaries. Okay, lastly, I'm going to wrap it up. The C is call for help. Like I started at the beginning, we are surrounded by people that want to help us. We feel like we have to do it alone, but we were not meant to do it alone. When I'm at work, I'm constantly asking for help. Can you help me with an IV? Can you help me hold down his arm while I do the IV? Can you help, can you grab me some morphine while my patient's crying in pain, right? We're constantly asking for help. The thing is that we feel like then in our outside world, outside of work, we can't ask for help, right? We feel like maybe we'll look weak or vulnerable, or we'll be putting someone out if we ask them for their time and energy. right? We were not meant to do this alone. I always end by saying that when I lived in my apartment, which was on the second story, I lived there for 9 years. Every time I came home from the food store, I tried to load up as many bags on my arm as I could so that I didn't have to make a second trip to the car. The problem was once I got inside, I had all these marks on my arms from the bags. And my neighbor Gregory would always offer to help. And I would say, "No, I got it, Gregory." And I would get in the house. Why wasn't I asking for help? Because I didn't want to put him out, because I didn't want to inconvenience him. We weren't meant to do it alone. So, again, the ABCs of navigating burnout: assess your life, boundaries, and call for help. You can find me everywhere at Katie Carroll Coaching. I'd love for you to come over and join my free Facebook group, the RN Recovery Room. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. Congratulations again. Myrna, thank you so much, and I'll see you around the hospital. Okay, bye-bye.